Hi everyone, this is Debono of the Fortune Teller Shop. Now I've created a deck of palmistry cards for beginners. And I'm going to show you how these work. So it's a deck of 12 cards, and you also have 6 cards that are blank for you to draw your own lines in once you learn how to read the lines of the hand and the palm. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate sort of like a brief explanation of each area that I cover in the cards. And here we go. So we have our palmistry hand here. The first area I'm going to look at is the Apollo area. Which is the ring finger. Now we have the Mount of Apollo, which is there on your hand. Okay. And we also have the line of Apollo. Now this area usually represents creativity, art, artistic ability and talent. Often it can also be prominent on people that are in show business. So often when people have lines towards Apollo or on Apollo, often these lines represent talent and fame as well. So I often see it on people who are singers, actors. Sometimes it could even be psychics as well, because Apollo was the god of art and he was also the god of talent and the arts, like performance art, visual arts, but he was also the god of prophecy. So often people have a strong line of Apollo right there, and they're into the arts or to do with anything to do with esoteric type of industry or career. So in the cards, I show the Apollo line. The second card is the moon. Now, the moon area is this area here, and any lines that go towards the moon represent intuition, sensitivity, emotions. Often people that have lines that go towards the moon work with people, and they're often in supportive type of roles. So they usually are carers or somehow looking after other people, and dealing with the public as well is another trait. So people that work with the masses, with lots of people. Okay, so it could be nurses, it could be carers of some type that work with the public. Often the moon represents women as well. So often it represents people who interact with a lot of women. The next area is Mercury. Mercury is the little finger. So lines that go towards Mercury usually indicate someone who is very good at sales, communication, talking, information, anything to do with being a merchant. We get the word merchant from Mercury, and Mercury was the god of merchants. So this is very good for people who have the gift of the gab, who are good at selling and who are good at networking, knowing where the bargains are and knowing how to connect with people to sell and buy and wheel and deal. Sometimes when people have a lot of Mercury lines, it could also represent they travel. Usually it's interstate or within the same country, okay, like traders do. International travel is usually more associated with Jupiter. So when they have a strong Jupiter finger or lines that go towards Jupiter or lines that point towards Jupiter, often they're more international. Okay, so the Jupiter mount and lines are, this is the Jupiter finger, the pointer. This is the finger of power. Pointer, when you're pointing at someone, you're usually telling them off or telling them what to do or telling them that they're wrong or bad. So this is like authoritative. Jupiter represents teachers, knowledge, education, people that are usually religious in some way. Could also be government people as well. People that have strong Jupiter lines often like their freedom. They don't like to be told what to do, and they don't like to be subordinate. They like to be the ones in charge often. So the next area we're looking at is Venus. This is the mount of Venus. Venus represents love and beauty and pleasure. So people that have a strong mount of Venus often focus on other people, such as family and relationships. The other thing that this area represents as well is pleasure, beauty, arts. So when you have a fleshy mount of Venus, often represents someone who is very physical, very sensual. Okay, they love their comforts and they love to have like a comfortable comfort life. So usually they love beauty, arts, they love pleasure, they love anything to do with expensive things. Now, you might say, well, doesn't everybody like that? Well, not really, not everyone. Some people are happy just living very basic. They're usually luscious and opulent. They love opulence, things that are expensive and opulent. Now, the other area of Venus is the Girdle of Venus, which is up here. Often this is associated with people that are into creativity and arts, but different to Apollo. Often Apollo is the creator. They're the creator of the art, whereas usually the Girdle of Venus means they consume beauty. So they're usually people that love arts, jewelry, maybe clothes. Often they have a fine taste for things. They don't necessarily make it. They're not necessarily the artisan, but they may be collectors, or they may be someone who is very good at picking out quality. So they're usually people with a fine eye. They can point out quality. They can tell if something is real or fake, like if it's a product. And they know how to pick and choose quality often when they have a strong Venus, Girdle of Venus as well. Sometimes it can also represent people who are, again, very physical. They like to be connected to others, physical, perhaps sexy. Venus is associated with sexy, being sexy as well. Now we come to the areas of Mars. So this is the mount of Mars, and this is the other mount of Mars. This is the lower mount over here. This is your power, but it's your power with your thumb, so it's kind of like inner power, and this is how you exert outer power. So it's like a karate chop. So when people have strong areas here, they often have very strong constitution. They could be very sporty as well, but they're usually physically strong. The negative side of having lines that go to Mars can be combative. Mars is the god of war. So sometimes they argue, argumentative, conflict. They conflict with others a lot too. That could be the negative side of Mars. Then we have Saturn. Saturn is the middle finger. Now, the lines that go to Saturn represents authority and being in charge as well. Often when people have lines that go to Saturn, often they love working. They're very disciplined. They're very hardworking. They often work for a long time as well. They retire later in life. So when lines go towards Saturn, their work is their identity as well. Sometimes when people have lines going towards Saturn, they're very traditional too. They often are, they're often traditional. They're often steeped in family tradition as well, or cultural tradition. The negative side of that is sometimes they lack having fun. They tend to stick to what society deems normal. They don't like to branch out or break the rules so much. The next line we have is the heart line. The heart line is the one that goes up. This tells you about your love life and the way you love. The heart line, when it points upwards, it often means happy and positive. When it points down, it often means not so happy, more challenged in your love life. If it's broken as well, it indicates you may have experienced or will experience a lot of breakups in relationships. The headline is the mind, and it tells you if it goes down to the moon, it tells you that they're very emotional, very sensitive, very imaginative. Sometimes it could even be moody if they go down to the moon area. If it goes up towards the Mount of Mars, that would indicate more logical and more strategic in the way you think. We have the unity lines as well, which sit underneath the Mercury finger. That tells us about marriage and relationships. So often you can tell how many times someone will have a major relationship or a marriage. The fate line. The fate line is the one that goes up the center, and it tells you about your fate, what career that you're good at or what talents you may have. So if your fate line goes towards Apollo, it means you're creative. If it goes towards Jupiter, it means you're more educational. If it goes to Mercury, your talent would be communication and sales and talking. Then finally we have the lifeline. The lifeline is this one that curves around the Mount of Venus. Now this tells you how you're going to live your life. If you have a wide lifeline, goes out this way, it means you live a very wide, big life, travel worldly. If you have a tight lifeline, it often means that you tend to stay more at home and tend to stay more in your own village, say. Broken lifelines can be challenges with your health and well-being, could also represent life changes. Represent well-rounded life. Often when the lifeline has breaks in it, it means changes in your life, possibly changing lifestyles or maybe living in different countries or cultures. Also, when it breaks, it can also represent health issues. So the lifeline is your vitality. So when you have breaks in it, it usually means your vitality was somehow damaged. So I'm going to leave the video here because I don't want this video to be too long. That was just a brief introduction to the lines of the hands and also introducing my palmistry cards. I will put a link to buy the cards in the description of this video. Please like and subscribe to my channel. This is Debono of the Fortune Teller Shop.